The challenge of modernity is to live without illusions and without becoming disillusioned. Antonio Gramsci, 1891–1937. According to Marx, the ruling class controls the economic base and creates the superstructure of institutions and social relations that dominate the working class. Gramsci claims class domination also occurs culturally. The working class are subject to the ideological illusions perpetrated by the ruling class. These illusions must be seen through, and resisted at all costs. The challenge of modernity is to live without illusions and without becoming disillusioned. The Marxist view of society is that life is an ongoing struggle of competing groups. These groups are determined economically, and under modernity the struggle has intensified into a contest for control between a minority ruling elite and the majority, made up of workers. Italian socialist and social thinker Antonio Gramsci tries to explain why revolution is not precipitated in a crisis, as it should be according to classical Marxist theory. He argues that repression by the ruling class is insufficient to secure a stable social order. There must also be ideological subjugation. This happens in a complex process whereby the ruling elite propagates its views of the world so that they are accepted as common sense and largely beyond contention. Gramsci calls this hegemony, a concealed mode of class domination that explains why workers can become fascists rather than revolutionaries. The hegemonic struggle. Gramsci claims that hegemony is cultural and that it is involved in a struggle between competing class-based worldviews, by which is meant sets of values, ideas, beliefs, and understandings of what human beings are like, what society is, and, crucially, what it could be. Hegemony, he says, involves an invisible mechanism whereby positions of influence in society are always filled by members of an already ruling class, largely with the consent of the subordinated. The ruling class's ideas, which are the dominant ones permeating the whole of society, are propounded by intellectual groups working in its service, often only partially knowingly, such as journalists who disseminate these ideas to the wider population. Constant exposure to them means that the lower classes experience them as natural and inevitable, and come to believe them. Hegemonic ideas shape the thinking of all social classes. It is for this reason, says Gramsci, that the challenge of modernity is not to become disillusioned with the ongoing struggle but to see through the illusions, the views propounded by elite groups, and resist them. Because individuals have the capacity to think critically about the view imposed upon them, which Gramsci calls counter-hegemonic thinking, the ruling class's ideological dominance is often in the balance. In Western liberal democracies, the challenge to hegemony is an everyday reality. The nature and extent of these struggles between competing worldviews is contingent upon social, political, and economic circumstances. A series of prolonged economic crises leading to high unemployment, for example, is liable to result in a situation in which various counter-hegemonic forces arise in the form of trade unions or protest movements. Gramsci notes that in most capitalist societies the ruling classes face constant opposition and dissent from below and have to devote a vast amount of time and energy to managing this situation, with complete control highly unlikely, even for short periods. Gramsci's ideas emphasize the role of individuals and ideologies in the struggle for social change, and thereby challenge the economic determinism of traditional Marxism. His concept of cultural hegemony, which recognizes human autonomy and the importance of culture, has had a lasting impact on a number of academic disciplines. Antonio Gramsci. Antonio Gramsci was born in Sardinia, Italy, in 1891. He was a co-founder of the Italian Communist Party. While serving as the party's leader, he was sentenced to 20 years imprisonment in 1928 by Benito Mussolini, Italy's prime minister and dictator at the time. Gramsci wrote prolifically while in prison. Although he had a prodigious memory, without the help of his sister-in-law, Tania, who was a frequent visitor, his ideas would not have come to light. This intellectual work did not emerge until several years after World War II, when it was published posthumously in what are known as the prison notebooks. By the 1950s, his prison writings had attracted interest not only in Western Europe, but also in the Soviet bloc. Due to the poor diet, illness, and bad health he suffered in prison, Gramsci died of a stroke at the age of only 46. Key works: 1975 Prison Notebooks, 3 volumes, 1994 Pre-Prison Writings. In context. Focus: Cultural hegemony. Key dates: 1846 Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels finish The German Ideology, not published until 1932. It later strongly influences Gramsci's thinking about ideology. 1921 The Italian Communist Party is founded. 1922 Benito Mussolini becomes dictator of Italy and a leading figure in the development of fascism. 1964 The Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies is established at the University of Birmingham, England, and draws heavily on Gramsci's notion of hegemony. 1985 Inspired by Gramsci's concept of hegemony, Ernsto Laclau and Chantal Mouffe develop a post-Marxist manifesto in Hegemony and Socialist Strategy.